Chapter 31. Quiz results. Kaizen woke with the first light of dawn filtering through his small window. He got out of bed and performed some light stretches before deciding to meditate, which lasted for an hour. Once he finished meditating, a smile appeared on his face. Kaizen finally finished mentally mapping out all 361 tenketsu points throughout his chakra network. This was huge for someone like him who wished to continually improve his understanding and control over chakra. Although Kaizen wasn't sure how fast his progress was compared to others, he figured it taking him around a week wasn't too bad. Now that I've achieved that milestone, I can work on consciously circulating my chakra throughout every tenketsu point, creating a full cycle of my chakra. That can wait for later though. I've spent enough time meditating and still need to take a shower, eat breakfast, and get another medical checkup before class. Quickly accomplishing those tasks, Kaizen was pleasantly surprised when he visited the medical ward. They performed another round of healing and informed him he should be able to do some light exercise today, but it might be best to wait until tomorrow. Although they said this, the medics were a bit taken back at Kaizen's recovery speed. Even if Kaizen's injuries weren't too serious, it was still a fraction of the recovery time normally required, indicating that Kaizen might have a naturally higher vitality than others. Feeling better after the treatment, Kaizen approached the academy. As he did, Kaizen noticed a group of his classmates gathered outside the classroom. Their animated conversations and occasional glances toward a wall hinted at the topic of their discussion. He quickened his pace, curiosity grabbing him. Kaizen called Hiroto Uchiha, his sharp eyes catching sight of him. Hiroto's voice was filled with excitement. "Come over here. The scores from the quiz are up." Kaizen weaved through the throng of students, returning greetings and nods as he went. Eiko Hyuga greeted him with a warm smile, her eyes twinkling with anticipation. "Good morning, Kaizen. The scores are posted on the wall over there." His eyes quickly scanned the large parchment bearing the results, finding his name at the very top. Kaizen 100A+. Kakashi Hatake 96A. Hiroto Uchiha 93A-. Eiko Hyuga 92A-. Rina Morioka 90A-. Further down, the scores began to taper off, with some students clearly struggling more than others. Ryuyu Yamanari 67D+. Kaizen's thoughts shifted from his own success to the broader picture. He noticed the range of emotions on the faces around him: relief, pride, disappointment. Hiroto slapped Kaizen on the back, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Well, looks like someone's been burning the midnight oil. What's your secret, Kaizen? Bribery? Blackmail? Kaizen chuckled, shaking his head. Nah, just good old-fashioned studying, a healthy dose of insomnia, and a pinch of luck. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Humble as always, Kaizen. But we both know luck had nothing to do with it. Yeah, Kaizen waved off the compliment. Eiko nudged Kaizen playfully. Just don't let it go to your head, genius boy. We mere mortals still need to believe we have a fighting chance. Kaizen laughed. It's just the first quiz. I imagine the rankings will be shifting quite a bit. After some more banter, the bell rang, signaling the start of the day's lessons. The students began to file into the classroom, each lost in their thoughts about the scores and what they signified for their current standings. Inside the classroom, the atmosphere was charged with a blend of pride, relief, and apprehension. Kaizen took his seat, glancing around to gauge the reactions of his classmates. Some, like Kakashi and Hiroto, appeared confident, while others, like Ryu Yamanari, seemed to be struggling with their emotions. As the last few students settled into their seats, Hiroshi-sensei walked in, his presence commanding attention and silence. He carried a stack of papers and paused at the front of the room, surveying the class with a keen eye. "Good morning," Hiroshi-sensei began, his voice calm but firm. "I trust you've all had a chance to see your test scores. Let me start by saying that while some of you have performed admirably, others have a lot of work to do." Kaizen felt a twinge of empathy for those who had not fared well. His gaze drifted to Ryu, who sat at the back, staring down at his desk. Hiroshi-sensei continued, "This quiz was designed to assess your current level of knowledge. It is not the final measure of your abilities, but a checkpoint. Those who excelled should not become complacent, and those who struggled shouldn't lose hope." Kaizen exchanged a brief, encouraging glance with Hiroto, who nodded slightly. They both understood the importance of continuous improvement. Hiroshi Sensei then began to walk the class through a review of the questions, explaining the correct responses and common mistakes. He emphasized the key points they needed to grasp, ensuring everyone understood where they went wrong and how to improve. Kaizen listened intently, taking detailed notes. The review reinforced his understanding of the material and provided insights into areas he could refine. He noticed Kakashi doing the same, their silent competition driving them both to absorb every bit of information. At one point, Eiko Hyuga raised her hand, her voice steady yet curious. "Sensei, could you go over the chakra control question again? I think a lot of us found that one particularly tricky." Hiroshi Sensei nodded, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Certainly, Eiko. Chakra control is a fundamental skill that many overlook. Let's break it down step by step." As Hiroshi Sensei explained, Kaizen noticed Rina Morioka furiously scribbling notes, her brow furrowed in concentration. The room was filled with the quiet sounds of pens on paper and the occasional murmur of understanding. During a brief pause, Eiko leaned over and whispered to Kaizen, "I'm glad we're going over this. I thought I understood everything, but there were a few tough questions." "Me too," Kaizen whispered back. It's good to see what answers he was looking for. Rina, sitting next to Eiko, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, this review is really helpful." As the review session came to an end, Hiroshi Sensei addressed the class once more. "Remember, this was just one quiz. Learn from your mistakes, support each other, and strive for excellence." As Hiroshi Sensei concluded his remarks, the classroom buzzed with a mix of subdued murmurs and hushed conversations. Kaizen's attention was drawn to Ryu Yamanari, who sat hunched at his desk, his shoulders slumped. The weight of his score seemed to be pressing down on him heavily. Kaizen decided he would reach out to Ryu after class, but for now he focused on the overall mood in the room. Eiko Hyuga and Rina Morioka were whispering to each other, their expressions a blend of relief and determination. "I'm glad we managed to stay in the A range," Rina said quietly, her voice carrying a note of lingering concern. "But I'm worried about keeping up." Kaizen leaned over and joined their conversation. "You both did great. Now that we know how he wants questions to be answered, it should be a bit easier. We'll help each other out." Eiko smiled appreciatively. "Thanks, Kaizen. Your support means a lot." Nearby, Taro Akimichi was fidgeting with his pencil, clearly troubled. "I don't think it was right to post our scores like this," he muttered, his voice just loud enough for those around him to hear. "It's embarrassing for those who didn't do well." Hiroshi Sensei, who had been organizing his papers, looked up sharply. "Taro," he said, his tone firm but not unkind, "if you cannot handle the public display of your performance, you should reassess your goal to become a shinobi." Taro's face turned a shade paler, and he lowered his head, clearly affected by the reprimand. Some students exchanged sympathetic glances, but none spoke up, understanding the harsh realities of their training. Kaizen decided to step in, sensing the need for some encouragement. "Taro, it's tough, but the outside world is incredibly cruel and unfair. The Academy is attempting to prepare us for that world, and things like publicly posting our scores is one of their introductory ways to create a competitive atmosphere, as well as hold us accountable for our actions. Nobody is looking down on each other, so you should try to view it as a benchmark for how to improve yourself going forward." Taro looked up, his expression softening slightly. "Thanks, Kaizen. I'll try to see it that way." Suki and Shiro added their voices of support, and soon a small group of students was engaged in a discussion about how to prepare for the next quiz. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the class, Hiroshi Sensei addressed everyone once more. "Before you all leave," Hiroshi Sensei began, his voice cutting through the murmurs, "I want to once again address any concerns that were raised about posting your scores publicly." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned towards their teacher. "This is not a civilian school," Hiroshi Sensei continued. "Here we train shinobi who must be prepared for the harsh realities of our world. Transparency and accountability are crucial. If you cannot handle your scores being posted, how will you handle the scrutiny and pressure of a real mission, where each decision can mean life or death?" The gravity of his words settled over the students, many of whom shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Taro Akimichi, in particular, looked visibly affected. Hiroshi Sensei's expression softened slightly as he addressed the class. "This is not about embarrassing you, but about preparing you. Each of you has the potential to excel, but that requires hard work. However, it is important for me to go ahead and inform all of you that those who continue to score below an 80 will be moved out of Class A. This news was shocking. Most of Kaizen's classmates didn't expect such a thing to be possible. This is not meant to be a punishment, but a result of the competitive environment within the academy. It was created for the purpose of the most talented rising to the top, and subsequently garnering the resources needed to help them grow more quickly. The village spends a large amount of money and resources on ensuring that the students here receive the best education and training possible. Students from classes B through Z would want nothing more than to take the seats you have in this class. Keep this in mind as you are ultimately responsible for your own performances and their subsequent consequences. Hiroshi-sensei's gaze flickered briefly to Kaizen and Kakashi, acknowledging their performances. It was a subtle reminder that high scores brought their own set of expectations and responsibilities. Remember, Hiroshi-sensei added, his voice carrying a final note of encouragement, this academy is here to mold you into capable shinobi. Use every challenge as a stepping stone to grow stronger. Hiroshi-sensei gave a final nod, signaling the end of his address. Class dismissed. As the students began to leave, Kaizen approached Ryu Yamanari, who was still seated, staring blankly at his test paper. Hey Ryu, he said gently, I noticed you had a tough time with the test. I'm organizing a study session in the library after school tomorrow. Would you like to join us? We can work on the areas you're struggling with. Ryu looked up, surprise and gratitude evident in his eyes. You'd help me? Really? Of course, Kaizen said with a reassuring smile. Ryu nodded slowly, a flicker of hope lighting up his face. Thank you, Kaizen. I'll be there. Kaizen patted Ryu on the shoulder and moved on to speak with other classmates. Some, like Taro Akimichi, initially seemed reluctant, but eventually agreed to join, appreciating the offer of support. Others, like a quiet girl named Yumi, accepted eagerly, their eyes lighting up at the prospect of improving their skills. Kaizen provided the details of the study session to each of them. We'll meet in the library at 4 p.m. I'll reserve a study room so we have a quiet place to focus. We'll go over today's lesson and any other topics. Hiroto caught up with Kaizen at the door. Hey Kaizen, would you like to train after the study session tomorrow? Sure, that sounds good, Kaizen replied. We'll make sure to cover everything we need in the study session and then head to the training grounds. Cool. Sounds like a plan, Hiroto said with a nod.